Have you ever heard the shocking fact that 75% of people fear public speaking more than death? Yes, it's true. Many would rather face their own mortality than tell a story in front of others. This fear comes from the pressure to tell the perfect story, to captivate and to impress. But what if I told you that perfection doesn't exist in storytelling? What if the key to great storytelling lies in our flaws and vulnerabilities? In this video, we'll dive into the secrets of storytelling that few people talk about. You'll discover why aiming for perfection can ruin your story and how embracing imperfection can make your narrative resonate deeply with your audience. We'll explore how emotional connections, subtext, and even messy endings can elevate your storytelling game. So get ready to uncover the truth about storytelling. By the end, you'll see that the journey to becoming a great storyteller is about authenticity and connection, not about crafting the perfect tale. Let's jump in and unlock the art of storytelling together. Chapter 1, The Myth of Perfection, Why Perfect Stories Don't Exist. Let's start with the big one, perfection. So many storytellers obsess over crafting the perfect story. But guess what? There's no such thing. Perfection is an illusion, and chasing it might actually make your storytelling worse. According to a 2018 study by Stanford University, people remember stories with mistakes or inconsistencies better than those that are too polished. Why? Because imperfection makes the story feel real. Think about some of the best stories ever told. Take The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's full of flawed characters and imperfect relationships, yet it's one of the greatest American novels. The imperfections give the story depth. If everything were perfect, it would fall flat. Another great example? Star Wars. Yes, even the original trilogy had plot holes, yet the series captivated millions because the characters and world felt relatable. Your audience doesn't want perfection, they want connection. Perfection is boring. It's the small cracks in the story that make it human. As writer Anne Lamott famously said in Bird by Bird, perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor. Instead of aiming for a flawless narrative, aim for an authentic one. Trust me, people will remember that more. Chapter 2, The Power of Flaws, Embracing Imperfections for Connection. Here's the secret. Flaws make your story better. Think about the last time you really connected with a character. Were they perfect? Probably not. Imperfections make characters, plots, and even real-life stories relatable. In fact, research published in Psychological Science shows that audiences are more likely to empathize with characters who show vulnerability or make mistakes. Look at Harry Potter. Harry isn't the smartest, strongest, or even the best wizard. He messes up a lot, but it's those flaws that make us root for him. If he were perfect, we wouldn't care as much. We see ourselves in his struggles. It's the same with storytelling in business or life. Stories with flaws connect because people aren't perfect and they don't want to hear about perfection. This is why many marketers now embrace the concept of brand authenticity. Data shows that 86% of consumers say authenticity is a key factor when choosing a brand. And authenticity often means admitting to flaws. You don't need to tell a perfect story. You need to tell a human one. Share your mistakes, highlight the rough edges, and your audience will feel more connected to you. When you let go of the need for perfection, you open up room for genuine engagement. Chapter 3, The Emotional Hook, Mastering the Art of Vulnerability. If you want to captivate people, you need to make them feel. And the quickest way to their hearts is through vulnerability. Studies show that stories with emotional depth are 22 times more memorable than facts alone, according to research from the Journal of Marketing Research. The stories that stick with us are the ones that make us laugh, cry, or feel something deeply. Take The Pursuit of Happiness, the film based on the life of Chris Gardner. The story is packed with setbacks and hardships. Gardner's vulnerability pulls us in because we've all experienced failure. That's the emotional hook. Without those struggles, the story wouldn't have the same impact. When you share your vulnerabilities, you're giving your audience permission to do the same. Brené Brown, a researcher who studies vulnerability, says vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. This applies directly to storytelling. By showing vulnerability, you make your story more dynamic and you allow your audience to see a piece of themselves in it. A lot of new storytellers think they need to look strong and put together, but strength in storytelling comes from showing your cracks, not hiding them. So next time you're crafting a story, ask yourself, where can I be more vulnerable? How can I connect on a deeper emotional level? The more open you are, the more powerful your story will be. If you're finding these tips helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join our community for more insights on storytelling and creativity. Chapter 4, The Unspoken Language. Using subtext to tell deeper stories. Subtext is like a hidden layer in storytelling that adds richness without spelling everything out. It's the art of saying more with less, and it can be a game changer for great storytellers. In fact, a 2016 study from Psychological Science showed that people are more engaged with stories when they have to read between the lines. Why? Because it invites them to participate in the storytelling process. One classic example of subtext comes from Ernest Hemingway's famous iceberg theory. He believed that the deeper meaning of a story should never be obvious. Only a small part of the story is visible while the bulk remains underneath, waiting for the audience to discover it. Take Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. On the surface, it's about a man catching a fish, but underneath, it's a story about struggle, pride, and defeat. Think about movies like Inception. Not everything is handed to you on a plate. You're left to wonder what's real and what's a dream. That ambiguity, that subtext, is what makes people talk about the film long after it ends. The best storytellers understand that it's what's unsaid that often has the most impact. So how do you use subtext in your stories? Don't explain everything. Let your character's actions, body language, and setting do the talking. For example, instead of saying he was angry, you could show him clenching his fists or pacing. Let your audience fill in the gaps. It makes your story richer and more layered. Chapter 5, The Storyteller's Curse. How overthinking ruins the flow. Here's a trap many storytellers fall into: overthinking. You try to perfect every word, every plot point, every character detail, and before you know it, your story loses its spark. Psychologist Barry Schwartz coined the term paralysis by analysis in his book, The Paradox of Choice, explaining how overthinking can prevent us from making decisions or moving forward. The same applies to storytelling. When you overthink, you get stuck in the details and forget about the bigger picture. Overanalyzing your story kills the flow. A great story has rhythm, a natural ebb and flow that keeps the audience engaged. But if you're constantly tweaking every little detail, that rhythm gets disrupted. Just think of a musician who stops mid-song to fix a note. It ruins the experience. Stephen King, in his book on writing, advises writers to write with the door closed, rewrite with the door open. What does that mean? Your first draft should flow freely without worrying about perfection. The key is to let your story live. Once you've written it, then you can edit. Research even shows that people make better decisions when they act on instinct rather than overthinking. A 2009 study from the University of Amsterdam found that those who went with their gut instinct perform better in complex decision-making tasks. In storytelling, trusting your instincts keeps the narrative fresh and natural. Don't be afraid to let your first draft be messy. Focus on telling the story, not perfecting it. You can always go back and refine it later, but if you overthink from the start, you'll never get past the first page. If you enjoyed these insights on storytelling, please subscribe. Join our community for more tips, tricks, and creative inspiration to help you tell stories that resonate.